Welcome to another episode of the ConquerCast. I've got an incredible guest here with us today, Brice Bishop. We're grateful for you to come and take this time. I know it's a busy time. We're here at the Hunt Expo. We figured that Thursday would be the best day because it's kind of the calm before the big storm on Friday and Saturday. Brice is the founder and CEO of Peaks Equipment, and I just got a text from my son. He left me here in this where we've set up for the studio, and he walked past your booth and he said, "Dad, the Cybertruck is sick." So you guys, you're giving away a Cybertruck right now, huh?
We are. You know, it was kind of one of those impulse decisions that we made kind of toward the end of last year, and we just were like, let's celebrate innovation next year. Let's do something that nobody else is doing, and just there's so many brands and products over the last several decades that have kind of brought us out of the dark ages of hunting, into what we have today. And so we wanted to just really celebrate that as a brand and just give people an opportunity to just focus on all the incredible products that are out there and brands that have really kind of transformed hunting into what it is today. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, we're just going to give it away and see what happens.
How long is the giveaway?
Actually, we're going to run the campaign the whole year.
Okay, smart.
We're going to kind of weave it through all of our product launches this year, just, other sales campaigns. And then the last day to get entered is going to be Cyber Monday.
Oh, cool.
So, right.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Good. Smart. I love it. I love it. You guys are very innovative that way. And hopefully there's some, if there's anything that Mountain Ops can do to help, bring awareness to that, we will. I know that Brinker and I had a call about a potential collaboration on a product with you guys.
Yeah, we think that's going to be sweet.
I think it'll be awesome.
Yeah, we won't let the cat out of the bag yet, but it's going to be sweet.
Good. Yeah. No, we're excited and grateful to be involved in some small way, but I've, we haven't spent a lot of time together. I've watched you from a distance, but I just respect everyone I talk to about you. It's high respect, admiration, trust, and so I know the type of individual I'm sitting across. You can tell who I'm sitting with and the goodness of your life and who you are. And so I appreciate that example in our industry, to me, to all the organizations out there that are a part of this hunting industry, but it goes beyond that as well. But you're a highly respected individual. Why do people, what is it about Brice Bishop? I know that's all right. Hey, tell us how good you are. But
I don't know. I hate that, because it's like, I don't know. I just try to live by a high moral standard. You and I share a common religious belief, and I just think that's kind of ingrained in who we are as children. Yeah. And if you buy into it, it kind of just becomes who you are. Yeah. And, the feeling's mutual with you. Everybody I talk to just loves Trevor and loves Mountain Ops and the brand and everything you guys have accomplished over the years. And it's just, I don't know, to me it's normal, it's natural to live that way. Yeah. But it definitely stands out, I guess. And people kind of can just recognize it amongst, I don't know, the worldliness of today's society.
Just the contrast to it, huh?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I try not to draw attention to stuff like that, and it's uncomfortable to get kind of compliments like that. But
I'm sure they come your way often, and I just want to start that way, just to, for the listeners, if you don't know Brice, but if you do, you probably already know that. If you don't know him, then that's the type of individual that I know I'm sitting with today, and we'll dive into some of your story. I'd love to hear first, like, how Peaks came about, and a little bit of background there, and the innovation that you guys have put into the products, and then let's dive into some of your personal life and some things that have transpired over the last year.
Yeah, fantastic. So, really Peaks started not as Peaks, but as Sissy Sticks back in 2019. We had been working on kind of a prototype trekking pole. My brother and I were on a backcountry hunting trip. He strongly recommended that I get trekking poles for that trip. I didn't really want to, but he was like, yeah, you really need them. So on the way out of town, we swung into like a Walmart. I got like a $19 pair of trekking poles. And we went hunting, and we were back in, we were coming out, and I think we were around like the 6 mile mark. We still had about 6 miles to go, somewhere in there. And we were coming down this face that really wasn't even super technical, but a little technical. And I just remember planting that pole down in front of me, and just the weight of my body and my pack, it just bent that pole 90 degrees in half. Right? And they were cheap aluminum poles. And so because it had creased that aluminum all the way, trying to bend it back just snapped that pole. And so I still had 6 miles of hiking to do without a pole. And it just spurred this conversation of like, well, what would it take to build a trekking pole for hunting? And when I got home, I just couldn't let the idea go, and got on Google, right, and just typed in trekking poles, and there's like a million different brands of trekking poles out there. But I just, at that point, you know, I was full-time employed in the financial services industry. This was kind of just like a hobby, a side deal, just to see if I could pull it off. It was always just going to be kind of either a hobby or a side hustle or whatever. And just started playing around with different configurations. Carbon fiber obviously was something that we were like, you need carbon fiber, keep it light, strong, whatever. But we kept snapping the bottom sections. No formula of carbon fiber that we found was durable enough. It just kept breaking.
Interesting.
And finally one day we were having a conversation with one of our friends, and we just were throwing around ideas, and he was like, why don't we just try aluminum on the bottom section, and then the rest of it carbon, just leave it carbon. And so we sourced a really, you know, good grade of aluminum, an aerospace grade aluminum, and we took them out and we didn't break them finally.
That's awesome.
And that's right around when I was starting to get connected with some people in the industry, and Brian Call had just posted a thing on Instagram saying, hey, I left my trekking poles in Alaska or somewhere, and I'm looking for a new pair. And one of my buddies that was working on the brand with us said, hey, you need to get Brian Call a pair of poles, because he was about to go to New Zealand. And so him and Ryan Lampers took a pair each to New Zealand, and they came back and they were like, these things should have broke several times, and they didn't. And so he's like, we could sell these. So then we kind of went through the process of, you know, kind of trying to tighten up the branding and all that kind of stuff. And then we launched them in August of 2019.
As Sissy Sticks.
As Sissy Sticks.
Why Sissy Sticks?
So we have a really good family friend who's my dad's friend, and he's, you know, I think he's 70 now, but he's a machine. I mean, he is like a machine. And but you know, over time, age just catches up with you, right? And so he started to slow down, and as much as he hated to admit it, you know, because it's not macho at all, he needed trekking poles. But he called them Sissy Sticks. He's like, I got to get my Sissy Stick. I hate these Sissy Stick, you know, like he was just a macho guy. And so that's where that came from.
I love it.
Was that, it's
that's fun to know the story.
Right? And,
I actually lent some. I have like 5 pairs of Sissy Sticks you guys have given me, and I love them. I have a friend that just did the Hurt 100 in Hawaii. Which is a crazy 100-mile race that's a 20-mile loop, but you're basically climbing. You're gaining 5,000 feet of elevation every 20 miles. Jeez. And through the, you know, a bunch of vines and stuff from the jungle in Hawaii and stuff, and he used the Sissy Sticks the whole 100. At like mile 40, a bunch of the contestants dropped out. He finished the whole thing, but he was using your sticks the whole time.
That's awesome.
Really cool. So cool. He'll be here at the Hunt Expo. I'll come and introduce him to you so you can.
Nice. I'd love to meet him.
Yeah.
So anyways, you know, then at that point, we were like, wow, this is kind of a viable little business. I actually had sold out of the partnership that I was in and just went full tilt into Sissy Sticks at that time. And, but I had met Dave Brinker, and, you know, he had come from Sitka and had a pretty big background, got a PhD in all the things Sitka from Gore, you know. And
so he was in Bozeman. You were in Bozeman?
No, so he had actually already moved to Oregon. Yeah. And so I met him here at the Hunt Expo. Back in 2019. And, you know, he wanted to come on board as a kind of an advisor at that time. Now he's fully into the brand, a part of the brand. But, and, you know, he's just so good at kind of getting up 30,000 feet and looking at the bigger vision and things like that. And he just was like, well, where do you want to take this? And I was like, I don't really know. I just want to sell poles. And he was like, that's not good enough. And so we kind of just started visualizing what the future could look like, what the product roadmap could look like, where we could go, where we felt like we had an open runway to just take this business and make it legitimate. And so we realized that Sissy Sticks couldn't really be applied to anything else other than poles. And so we went through a rebranding process, and that's how we came up with Peaks.
Cool.
And then we relaunched as Peaks in August of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. It's incredible. And so since then, it started with the poles, the 60
Yep.
sticks, turns into Peaks. What other
Yeah.
products have you brought into the
So
lineup?
right now we have two lines, basically, our hiking line and our sleep system line. So in the hiking line, there's like 5 models of trekking poles now. We have our Stormcastle Gator and our Backcountry Duo headlamp and 2 skews.
Awesome.
So that's kind of the hiking side of the business. And then we've got the sleep systems, which are our teepee tent, the stove system, our sleeping bag, the origami TNT, which is kind of a tarp that transforms into a tent.
Okay.
And we'll be kind of rounding out that sleep system throughout the year, this
Okay.
year, with more structures, sleep structures, and another bag and a bigger stove, things like that,
That's
just to
awesome.
kind of like complete that system.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What are the top sellers that people are buying?
The headlamp's insane.
Okay.
I mean, it's the brightest single die LED on the market.
Yeah.
So, when a hunter's out in the night, he doesn't want to use that white light because animals can see
Yeah.
that white light, right? So the red and the green options that we have are non-game spooking colors, and they're so bright that you can legitimately hike at night
That's
with
awesome.
a red light or a green light. And I mean, we just sell a truckload of those things
That's awesome.
every month. It's
So
insane.
cool.
Yeah, it's so cool.
That's amazing, man.
So.
You miss the financial world at all, or you?
No.
No.
I mean, it was great from a money perspective. I did very well in that industry, but different from the hunting industry. Every time the phone rang or an email came through, it was just a problem and just people upset and angry about something. So super high stress, and it just wore me down. So when the opportunity presented itself to kind of just get out of that, I was like, I'm going to do something that I can actually enjoy now.
Yeah.
And that's why I decided once those poles worked for Brian in New Zealand,
Cool.
I was like, let's just try it.
That's awesome.
What's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work, and then I got to go find another financial services job. But so far, it's been great.
Good. I mean, this podcast is all about conquering. Is there in the business world, in building Peaks, what's been one of the uphill battles or something you guys have had to overcome?
Yeah. So for us, we really have tried to grow 100% organic. Like I never wanted to take on outside investors or go get a line of credit or anything like that. So we literally have bootstrapped this business from the ground up, and we've tried to fund it 100% by ourselves. We've never taken on any money from anyone or a bank, anything. And that, it's tough to grow that way. All of a sudden you start to hit scale. And the POs get bigger, and all of a sudden you're getting more attention from retailers and things like that. And so that's been an uphill battle for us to try to just grow at the right pace and not outdo ourselves. It's a good problem to have.
It's interesting because a lot of people getting into business think that you just want fast pace. You just want it to scale. And I mean, I've learned the hard way trying to do that in the past in other businesses where that can be the most dangerous thing is to just like go big all at once. It can really put some stress on the business. And
especially when you start to hire people, like, we now have a full-time sales manager, and obviously he's got a compensation structure that's tied to sales, all those different things. And so he wants to go out and just blow the thing up. But there's huge risk in that. And it's hard to say, no, we're going to do this in a controlled way, and we're going to take it step by step. But that's, something that we've actually been pretty successful at.
That's awesome. I'm sure your background in
it's
finance
helped a
and all
lot.
that has been a huge
I'm,
blessing.
I'm horrible at marketing. I'm horrible at, a lot of other things in our brand, but I kind of understand the finance side of it. And so that's helped us to grow the right way so far.
Awesome. Well, you find what you're good at, and then you surround yourself, and it looks like that's what you've done, is surround yourself with the people that know and understand the other areas that you're maybe not qualified or an expert in, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we have such a good team of people. I can hardly take any credit for where we're at today because without all of these other people involved, I mean, they have just done so much for our business.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, good stuff, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
No, congratulations on all the success, and it's fun to see what, just your presence even at this show getting bigger and bigger, and then you have a Cybertruck. You're the only one with a Cybertruck in here, and we talked about it. It's
a little obnoxious, you know.
It can be obnoxious. I mean, it is what it is. It's exciting, whether people want, like what I've heard from people that have, even those that have bashed it, once they get in it and they sit in it, they're like, oh my goodness, this thing is unreal. And you guys are celebrating innovation. So it's not like that there are haters in the hunting industry that kind of poke at you and this and that. And I don't get it. I don't understand why people waste their time that way. Yeah. But it's a sensitive space, and there's tradition and all this. And so innovation can sometimes take away from the good old boy tradition of things. Yeah. But I think this industry needs innovators like yourself that are willing to kind of step out of the bounds and say, look, this is what we're celebrating. This is why. Yeah, you might not take this into the backcountry. You might, why not? Like try it, test it. But it's, I love that you guys are kind of crossing the barriers and letting people know you're here. So.
Yeah, like you said, all about celebrating innovation, right? And just where we've been and where we've come to and where we're going. And I fully believe that in the next 10 years, everything's going to be electric, right? Like you just have seen the progress happening. And to be honest, if that thing had 200 more miles of range on it, I'd sell my diesel pickup today and just drive it, because they are that incredible.
That's awesome.
But they're just not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But the whole point, like you said, we're not trying to tell people to take a Cybertruck into the backcountry. We're just celebrating progress and innovation and doing it in a disruptive way. That's another thing about our brand is whenever we make products, we're trying to figure out how to make them completely different from every other product out there. We could make a teepee that's just like everybody else's, but we chose not to do that. Yeah. We really have put a lot of thought into our products to how to do it differently and help people thrive in the backcountry and just enabling them to have a better experience. So
that's awesome.
That's kind of why we chose to do this Cybertruck campaign.
Good. Well, congrats, and I'm here to support you all the way. Last year at the Hunt Expo, I was in the booth. It was, my father had passed away about at 6 months prior, so I had a bunch of people in the booth that I hadn't seen in a while. They were offering their condolences. They were saying sorry, this and that, and then somebody said, "Did you hear that Brice's wife just passed away? And her funeral was just last week, and he's here." And I honestly, I don't know if my head was in the clouds. I don't know where I was, but I didn't know that had happened. Yeah. It was in that moment, because it's one thing to lose a parent, but definitely another thing to lose a spouse. Yeah. And this is I'm sure a major mountain that representing in your life that you've had to climb and that you've had to work through and conquer. And I'm sure you're still climbing it in different aspects. And I want to dive into that a little bit. I mean, there's people that go through and suffer loss in this life, some through spouse, some through children, some through parents, siblings, whatnot. I can't even imagine. I mean, my heart broke that day when I heard that had happened. And can you tell us a little bit about your wife, your relationship, and let's dive into that a little bit. I know it's a sensitive topic, but it sounds like you're doing pretty well right now.
Yeah, I mean, to preface all of this, I think I'm probably in the best place I've been in a real long time.
Good.
Time has a way of kind of healing all wounds, and they never go away, right? But at some point you have to look at yourself and say, is this going to be my life, or am I going to go make my life what it could be, and not look back and just wish that I was back in the past. Yeah. But my wife, she
what's her name?
Her name was Cindy.
Cindy.
Yeah. Okay. And she was super extroverted, the life of the party. Mm-hmm. Everybody loved being around her. You couldn't walk into a room without just feeling that presence. She had a very commanding presence in the room.
Awesome.
She was a dance teacher. She taught the high school dance team. She had her own dance studios throughout the years.
So the dance teachers, studio owners, especially the high school, they have to be. I mean, that's that in the dance world, you've got to have some energy and right.
Yep.
My daughters have grown up doing that. So.
And she had done that since she was 20 years old.
Okay.
Right. So she passed away at 53.
Okay.
And but from 20 to 53, full time dance, like that's all she did. And it was her love of that she was built to do it.
Yeah.
It was the gift that God gave her, and she magnified it to the fullest extent.
Wow.
And so she was just incredible at that, and she just built phenomenal relationships. She related to youth in a way that very few people, I think, can. And she would just build these teams and dance groups that they just thrived together under her leadership. And
it was just she was just accepting of everyone and connected with everyone.
No, she was a tough cookie,
Okay.
and she held them to a very high standard.
Okay.
But she also could relate to them and understand what they were going through. And so in their moments of need, she was also able to be there as like a mentor or even a therapist. Like she really just had this way of connecting with these girls like no one else could.
Wow.
And it just was an incredible thing to watch because you just didn't see it every day.
It reminds, like my dad at his funeral, a bunch of missionaries, my dad was a mission president, and a bunch of missionaries were coming through, and they were saying, he loved me into my potential.
Yes.
He held them to a standard,
right?
And he loved them and mentored them along the way with empathy and understanding of where they were at, what they were going through. It sounds
probably
similar.
very similar to that, right?
Yeah.
Like her ability to take somebody that normally the world would go, you're not good enough, and to provide the encouragement and the environment for them to then progress and thrive and become better was something special.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
So cool.
So, that's who she kind of was as a person her whole life. She would stop what she was doing at any moment in time to go help someone in need.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. I mean, she'd get mad at me all the time because somebody's on the side of the road and I'd buzz past them because I'm late to whatever. And she'd be like, we need to go help that person, right? And she'd make me turn around. That's just the type of human being that she was.
It's really cool. As a spouse to you, when you're, starting a new business and doing, sissy sticks and peaks and all this, and you're taking risks, how was she?
I mean, as good as she was in the dance world, she was equally as supportive of me doing that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I had just come out of a career that paid pretty well and taken a risk, but she was like, I've never seen you happier, and because of that, I'll support this. I don't care where we live. We could live in the tiniest little apartment, whatever. Didn't matter. She was just willing to support it because she saw how miserable I was doing what I was doing and how much joy I was having starting Peaks.
Yeah, wow.
And so she was fully supportive.
Yeah.
And even risking savings and things like that we had, she was like, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
Money was no object. Like she just was like, she never wanted to make money. That's one thing I always used to be like, honey, you need to charge more for your dance lessons or whatever. And she's like, I don't ever want somebody to not be able to dance because of money.
That's awesome.
So
wow.
Anyway, so that's that's just who she was.
Yeah.
This journey started about 2.5 years ago, actually. Okay. And we found out that she had a cyst called a mucinous cystic neoplasm on her pancreas. And it was about the size of a large grapefruit.
Wow.
And it had consumed actually like 2/3 of her pancreas and kind of the spleen and attached itself to the colon a little bit. So it was a pretty big deal.
She
when they
just
found
started
it.
having symptoms.
Yeah, some weird symptoms, some abdominal pain, that couldn't be explained. And it finally just got to the point where she's like, I got to go see somebody.
Wow.
And then they did a MRI, and that's when they found it. And, at first when they said you have a cyst on your pancreas, we were thinking like a normal cyst that they can just go in and drain or take it out or whatever. And we were just like, okay, well, let's remove it. And they were like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, this isn't just a normal cyst. And actually, when we decided finally to have her first surgery, it was 2 years ago at the Hun Expo. I excused myself from the booth, and one of the docs here at the Huntsman was like reviewing everything with us here at the Hun.
Wow.
I'm on a Zoom call. She's at home. The doc's showing us how big this thing is and saying, this is like full abdominal surgery. Like, we got to open you completely up to get this thing out. We can't go in laparoscopically or anything like that. This is a pretty intense operation that you're going to have.
Wow.
So we decided, to just proceed right away. So literally like 2 weeks after the Hun Expo 2 years ago, she came down and went into that surgery, and they removed it. And, they tested it, and they said, well, it's benign, but the doctor's like, I've seen a lot of these, and it was on the doorstep of cancer. And what they were concerned about is the section of that cyst that was attached to the colon. They didn't want to resect part of the colon as well as they had to remove 2/3 of her pancreas or spleen, and they were like, removing some of the colon would be too much.
Wow.
So they kind of peeled it off and cauterized it and said, we just need to watch it, right? Because it tested benign, they weren't overly concerned about it. But then they just said, you're going to every 3 months have to get new blood work and scans and everything else. And for about a year, a little over a year, she felt great. Life was good, and she was doing phenomenal. And then, not last year, but the year before that, in about May, she started feeling kind of those same symptoms coming back. And she thought, well, sometimes it's her pancreas not working quite right because she only had 1/3 left, right? And so she went in and they did labs, and she had a tumor marker that was like through the roof. And they were like, we need to do scans again. And they were scanning everything. They could not find anything. And so for about 2 months, they were trying to search because those tumor markers kept elevating every time. Like every 2 weeks, she'd get new blood work done, and it just kept going up. So they knew something was wrong somewhere, and they had to find it. And eventually in July, not last year, but the year before, they said, well, we're going to send you back down to the Huntsman, and they're going to do some more tests and whatever. And one of those tests they did was a colonoscopy, and they found where that cyst had attached to the tumor, or to the colon, that a tumor had grown inside the colon at that point. And they took some biopsies on it, but the guy that did it he goes, this is cancer. And he said, if it tests to be pancreatic cancer, then it's stage 4 because it's spread into another part of the body. Right?
Wow.
And so they did a histochemical stain test on it, and sure enough, it was from the same cyst that was on her pancreas. And at that point, they thought, well, since it was attached originally to the colon, we might be able to just remove it, and we'll just take it out and see what happens. And then she did a PET scan, and there were some lesions on her liver at that point as well. And so they still thought they could do surgery. And between then and when they had the surgery scheduled, that tumor grew into a full obstruction. Wow. And then she had to go into emergency surgery, and they couldn't. Huh? Yeah. And when they were in doing that kind of that bowel obstruction surgery, the surgeon that went in to do it in Bozeman, he kind of felt around her abdomen. He's like, it should have felt all silky smooth in there. And he's like, she had tumors all over in her abdomen that were just so small that they didn't show up on the MRIs and stuff. But he was kind of like, your whole abdomen feels like cobblestone almost. So
how do you guys receive that news?
We were still at that point, we were like, okay, well, how fast can she recover from this bowel obstruction surgery so we can go get the other surgery done? And for a couple of days, we were talking like that with the doctors, and finally another surgeon came in that was on rotation, and he just said, look, I need to be very honest with you. You're not going to have that other surgery. And we were like, what are you talking about? And he was like, with all the tumors in your abdomen now, they can't go in and remove all this. It's spread too much. And so that was a massive blow. He's like, we've scheduled a meeting with the oncologist to come in and talk to you and just give you guys options. And so they came in, and it was a very rare type of cancer that she had, that only about 2% of women in their 50s get.
No way.
Yeah. So it wasn't even like regular pancreatic cancer that's still horrible. And
any rhyme or reason to this? Is there genetics?
No,
is there
that mucinous
environmental?
Yeah, no. And she, as a dancer, she was so active and healthy and everything. They said they still don't. It's like type 1 diabetes, right? They don't know why somebody gets type 1 diabetes. They said they've never been able to figure out why females get these mucinous cystic neoplasms. And most of the time they're not cancerous, and they don't turn into cancer, and you remove them and they're fine. So, that's just the perfect storm of bad events, right?
Wow.
And so at that point, you know, this was August, and we met with an oncologist, and he basically said there is no cure for this.
Wow.
And all we can do for you at this point is help you decide what type of life you want to live for the remainder of your life, right?
Did they give a timeline?
They said you probably have 6 months.
Oh my goodness.
They said if you go really aggressive, you might be able to squeeze out like 10 months.
This is July or August of 2023, or?
Yeah. And so, you know, she was really big on quality of life, obviously. And so they gave us some options, and she chose the one that, you know, she chose the chemo treatment that would just slow it down enough to where she could still function and try to like live as much of a normal life as possible.
And this is a mother that has 6 children.
6 children, yeah. You know, some adult children, some still in the house. Our youngest at that point was 15. Yeah, it was really, really a tough blow, you know, we held off telling the youngest for a couple months. It was September, the end of September, when we finally like said, you know, we need to bring them together and tell our 2 youngest, who at that point were 15 and 17.
How did they handle that?
I mean, as poorly as you can imagine, right? Like, I mean, how do you tell your 15-year-old son that his mom in 5 months is going to be...
That there's a timeline a time limit on things.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
It was probably one of the most excruciating things you can go through. You know, because, I mean, for all of them, not just for the youngest, but, you know, you think about your youngest kids who have so much life to go through, and who have graduation of high school and missions and marriages and, you know, all the things that they're not going to be able to experience with their mom. You know, the older ones, it's just as hard for them, you know, but they at least, their mom was there for those events in their life and got to meet even, you know, some of our grandkids. So it was so hard to go through that at that point. But at the same time, we just said, if we know we've only got 6 months, we have to take full advantage of this as a family. And we were already a really tight-knit family anyways. But we just decided, you know, we're going to go from here to here.
Wow.
And we made every second count for that 6 months. And it was almost 6 months to the day.
Wow.
Yeah. She died January 26th of 2024.
Okay. Wow. So. I'm so sorry you've had to go through that. How are your children doing now?
You know, like I said, I think as good as I'm doing, I think they're all doing pretty much equally as good.
Yeah.
You know, the core value system that we live by and the beliefs that we have, I think, have really just strengthened us through this whole thing.
Yeah.
But I can't also, you know, look back and not acknowledge the countless prayers that we received from friends and family and, you know, the community, the hunting community, like everyone. You know, there's so many people that reached out and said, hey, we're praying for you.
Yeah.
And as I look back, I just go, man, the strength that somehow I was able to muster through a lot of that, I'm like, there's no way I could have done that on my own.
100%.
Like, no way.
I agree.
And it was a pretty special experience, to be honest. I've said to so many people, like, I would never wish that on anyone, right? I mean, it's watching your spouse just slowly degrade, you know, I guess you'd call it rapidly degrade, but, you know, but for us, it kind of seemed like a slow process. That 6 months went by very slowly. I would never wish that on anybody, but at the same time, the blessings of our family coming tighter together and the bond that we created that's now stronger than it's ever been, I wish everybody could experience that, you know? And so it's kind of that catch-22.
How do people do that without having to, because that, I mean, so you guys came together close as what were some of the things you did over those 6 months that like brought you guys together?
Yeah, I think every opportunity that we had to bring the family together, we did that.
To take advantage of time, right?
Take advantage of time. And everybody committed to that, right? Like the older kids, they came home and they just spent as much time as they could. when she felt strong enough to get out of the house and go do things, we went and did things as a family. And it just was, don't take that time for granted. It very easily, she could have just been in bed the whole time because she felt rotten, right? Chemo just knocks you flat, and then you have a few days of like recovery, and then you get 2 good days, and then you're right back into the next treatment. And so it could have been really easy for us to just be like, well, mom's not feeling good, we're just going to let her rest. But she didn't want that. She was like, we need to live our life still, and we need to take advantage of this time. So it's hard because life gets in the way, right? I mean, we all are busy. Kids have activities, all the responsibilities, work, everything. But I just think sometimes you have to take a step back and go, am I prioritizing things correctly? Like running a business is hard. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work. But is it more important than going to your son's basketball game as a family and making sure that you're spending that time together? Or going on a hike. She had cancer, and we went on a 4-mile hike as a family because she felt strong enough to do it.
That's awesome.
And it was incredible.
Wow.
And so I just think that at some point you have to take that step back.
Yeah.
And you have to really analyze your life and say, am I prioritizing things in the right way?
Okay. Wow.
That's the only, I don't know if that's even the right answer.
I think it is. I mean, it's interesting. There's a book called Essentialism, and he talks about the word priority and how up until like the 1500s, that's what it was. It was priority. And then we've kind of somehow bent reality and said it's now priorities, and we've added all these different things to life that become priorities. But there is one single thing. And I think it's probably what got you guys through, and that's God.
Yeah.
It's a relationship there. How was your faith strengthened or tested, and even your wife's? How going through that? I can't imagine as an individual knowing like there is a date, there's a finite amount of time, and we all know time is fleeting.
Yeah.
But there's never until something like this a date put on it, a timeline, which is like it could be 20 more years, 50 more years.
Yeah.
How was her faith, her hope during those times, and how was that for you? And
it's amazing, and you hear these stories all the time. People that are going through those, terminal situations, they somehow get through it better than the people that are having to go along the ride. And I really, truly believe that angels are real, and that God assigns angels to you when you're going through that stuff to help you just overcome the mental stress that it can put on you. And we were so blessed to feel that around us, and you literally could feel that strength of what I just believe angels that were with us.
Awesome.
And it was an incredible experience for us as a family. And our faith, we were strong in our faith anyways. Yeah. But I think that putting more trust in our Heavenly Father's plan, and all of us as a family, knowing that, yes, it's going to really suck to have mom gone. Yeah. But is she really gone? I still believe today that she's able to help us in ways from the other side
100%.
That she couldn't do here.
Yeah.
And so I really believe that she's still ministering to us from the other side. Yeah. And that we're able to benefit from that and have blessings in our life because she's still able to be involved in our lives.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I 100% believe that as well. I've witnessed that in my own life. I'm especially more lately than ever before. And you can see that God, he gives his angels charge over us to help us, to bless us. And you and I both know a scripture that the Lord says, I will go before your face. I'll be on your right hand and on your left. And my spirit in your heart, mine angels round about you to bear you up. And sorry to get so emotional, but this is, man, I just, more people need to have the faith, the hope, the strength, and the connection that you have had through this, and to experience the peace and to be okay with the difficult times that you've gone through and the things that you learn, even though it probably didn't feel okay all the time, right?
Yeah. And I think when you're going through it, you're kind of just in survival mode, right? You're kind of just Okay, we got to go to another chemo appointment. Okay, we got to go do this. Okay, we got to go do that. And you're just kind of surviving it. And then the end comes. And, there's another couple weeks of it's like planning funerals and, doing all of that kind of stuff, all the, bank accounts and all the things that you think, Social Security benefit, all the things that you don't want to deal with, but you have to.
You have to.
Right? And then all of a sudden it's all over. Yeah. And you're left to kind of figure life out alone. I think that's actually when the hardest moments are, because the phone calls stop, the visits stop, the meals stop, everything stops. And then you're left to just pick the pieces up and figure out, how am I going to move forward? And, there were some really challenging moments in that process. But I received a really good blessing from a great family friend of ours before she died. And, he basically told me, you're not going to suffer from depression, that the memories and the love that you guys have created and built will bear you up and you'll be able to press forward. And so there was never a day that I woke up that I felt like I can't get out of bed. There was days I woke up and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do today. Yeah. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But there was never a day that I've woken up where I'm like, I just am so depressed. I can't deal with life. I just want to stay in bed all day. So I felt really blessed. Wow. And our kids have been the same way. But there is, some struggles of life that just, you look back and you look back longingly sometimes at what you had and what you missed, or what you're missing, and you wish that you could just go back. But it's kind of like Lot's wife, right? Yeah. Like her sin, Jeffrey R. Holland gave a talk about that, and he talked about, her sin wasn't necessarily that she looked backwards. Yeah. It was that she looked back longingly, that she didn't have enough trust and faith in God that he could take her from the life that she had and give her a new life that was just as fulfilling and just as happy as what she thought she was leaving behind. And that's really what happened with her, right? So I actually got to that point where I was just like, man, I need something. And I was on YouTube and I came across that talk and I listened to it from him. And it was a new perspective for me. Wow. And I just was like, okay, I need to muster up the faith to believe that God can take me forward and that I can be happy and that he will direct my life in a way that I'm going to have joy again. And struggled with that for a few months. Yeah. Her birthday was last October. Okay. Had a lot of anxiety leading up to that, but had an incredible experience where I just had a confirmation that she's okay where she's at and she's doing the work that she needs to do. And I need to be okay moving forward in my life, not moving on, not forgetting, none of that, but moving forward, and that I should be trying to be happy. And
she would want that.
She would want that for me.
Yeah.
And that was a huge turning point for me. I struggled a little bit with it still because, you feel this feeling of betrayal almost. Like if you move forward and you're happy, like, well, wait a minute, I should be thinking about this still. But, over the course of about a month and a half or so, I really just came to terms with that. And over the last 3.5, 4 months, I've gotten into a really good place. Wow. Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that with us. I know that's really raw and personal. There's a scripture that says, I do this for a wise purpose. And for some reason, in some ways, there's things that happen in our lives and they're just done for a wise purpose. Yeah. And it sounds like you've been able to look that way, to look forward, understand, love, appreciate the joy from the past and the joy that can come in the moments that are to come. It's a temporary separation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a great thing to hope for and to work towards. There's a book that we've read at Mountain Ops. It's called How Will You Measure Your Life? It's by Clayton Christensen. I don't know if you've heard of it. But
I haven't read it, but I know who he is.
Great one to read. And but I just want to end with that is a question, like, when all is said and done, how will you measure your life, Brice?
That's a great question. I think the only way that I can measure my life is to look at my children and see if the things that I've done in my life have made them proud of the legacy that I'm leaving behind.
Yeah.
And that they'll be able to take those lessons and apply them into their own lives and be better human beings than I am or than my wife was.
Yeah.
That's all I want in life, is for my kids to be better than I am and to have more success than I have and to be happier than I am. And if I can achieve that, or even a small measure of that, then I think then I've done a decent job.
Well, you're a great man. That's a high bar, but coming from you and having them watch your example, your wife's example, and then her having charge over them to help them through their life. What an incredible blessing, and in a way that maybe wasn't possible here. So I'm grateful that you see that from that eternal perspective, and grateful for this conversation today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for
Appreciate
taking some time. I know it's busy here, but this has been beneficial for me. I've already got the tears flowing, the sweaty eyes going. So we'll walk back into the expo hall with red eyes. But thanks for being on here.
Hey,
appreciate
it. Thanks, Trevor.